Part 1: The Grave. The rain fell quietly over the cemetery, soaking the black soil and the expensive suit of the man standing alone beside the grave. Richard Hale, billionaire, investor, media icon, stared down at the cold marble headstone as if it might suddenly speak back to him. Ethan Hale, beloved son, gone too soon. Richard's hands trembled. He had stood in boardrooms without fear, faced billion-dollar losses without blinking, but nothing prepared him for this silence. The silence of a son who would never answer again. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice cracking for the first time in years. "I should have protected you. People said time healed everything. They were wrong." 3 years earlier, Ethan had vanished during what was supposed to be a short charity trip overseas. The official story claimed an accident. A body was found, DNA matched. The case was closed, but Richard never truly believed it. A gust of wind rattled the trees. Somewhere behind him, footsteps crunched softly on the wet gravel. Richard didn't turn. He assumed it was the groundskeeper or another mourner paying respects from a distance. What he didn't know was that someone was watching him. From behind a row of old oak trees, a young man stood perfectly still, his hood pulled low over his face. His eyes were fixed on Richard. Not with anger, not with hatred, but with something far heavier. Longing, pain, and recognition. The young man's hands clenched into fists as he watched the billionaire kneel beside the grave, his shoulders shaking. "He thinks I'm dead," the young man thought. "He buried someone else in my place." 3 years. 3 years of silence. 3 years of hiding, and today, he had finally come back. Richard placed a single white rose on the grave. "If there's anything left of you out there," he said quietly, "I hope you know, I never stopped looking." The words hit the young man like a knife, because the truth was, Richard had stopped looking. He had trusted the wrong people, and that mistake had cost them both everything. The young man took a step forward, then froze as a distant voice called out, "Sir, the cemetery is closing soon. The groundskeeper." Richard stood, wiping his eyes, his face once again hardening into the mask the world knew. He nodded silently and turned away from the grave, walking back toward his car without looking back. If he had, he might have seen the truth standing only 20 feet away. The young man waited until the sound of footsteps faded. Then he slowly approached the grave, kneeling where his father had just been. He touched the engraved name with trembling fingers. "They told you I was dead," he whispered. "And you believed them." His jaw tightened. "But I'm alive." Thunder rumbled in the distance, and with it came a decision that would change everything. Because Ethan Hale, the son everyone believed was buried here, was done hiding. And soon, the truth would shock the entire world. The rain had stopped by the time the millionaire Richard Hale left the cemetery. But inside him, the storm had only grown stronger. His son's grave, cold marble, carved dates, a name that still felt unreal, refused to leave his mind. Because something had felt wrong. Richard had buried his son Daniel Hale 3 years ago after a tragic accident. Or at least that was what he had been told. He had been on a business trip overseas when it happened. By the time he returned, everything was already done. The funeral, the reports, the sealed casket. He never saw Daniel's face one last time. At the time, grief had crushed every question. But now, standing there today, talking to the grave, Richard had felt something he couldn't explain. A strange awareness, almost like being watched. That night, sleep refused to come. Richard sat alone in his vast mansion, the silence broken only by the ticking of an antique clock. Around him were signs of wealth, art, glass, gold, but none of it mattered. He poured himself a drink, his hand trembling slightly. His assistant's words echoed in his head from earlier that week. "Sir, there were inconsistencies in the old case files." Richard had dismissed it then. Today, he couldn't. He opened his laptop and typed in the password to a folder he hadn't accessed in years. Daniel Hale, incident. Medical reports, police summaries, witness statements, and then something caught his eye. A hospital discharge form. not a death certificate. Richard leaned closer to the screen, his heart pounding. The document showed Daniel had been transferred, quietly, from one private medical facility to another. The destination field was blurred, partially redacted. Why would a dead boy be transferred? Richard whispered. The next morning, Richard did something he hadn't done in years. He went out alone, no security, no driver. He returned to the cemetery, but this time he didn't stop at Daniel's grave. He walked past it. Behind the cemetery, beyond the old trees and broken fencing, stood a small caretaker's house. Weathered, forgotten, most people didn't even know it existed. Richard knocked. After a moment, the door creaked open. An old man stood there, his eyes widening when he recognized Richard. "You," the man said quietly. "I wondered when you'd come back." Richard's blood ran cold. "You know me?" The caretaker nodded slowly. "I knew your son." Richard felt his knees weaken. "My son is buried here." The caretaker looked at him for a long, heavy moment, then shook his head. "No," he said, "he isn't." Richard staggered back. "What are you saying?" The old man lowered his voice. "There was a night 3 years ago. An ambulance came, no sirens, no papers. I was paid to forget it." Richard grabbed the door frame to steady himself. "Where did they take him?" The caretaker swallowed. "I don't know where he went, but I know one thing." He leaned closer. "That grave you cry over, it's empty." At that exact moment, somewhere not far away, hidden from the world, a young man stood behind a cracked window watching the cemetery through binoculars. His hands shook as he lowered them. A tear rolled down his cheek. "Dad," he whispered. Daniel Hale was alive, and he had been waiting for this day. ईथन ने कब्रिस्तान छोड़ दिया, लेकिन उसका दिमाग वही अटका हुआ था। उस बच्चे की आंखों पर वो नजर, वो बिल्कुल उस जैसी थी जैसे उसका अपना बेटा डैनियल उसे देखकर मुस्कुराता था। घर पहुंचकर भी ईथन को नींद नहीं आई। रात भर वो डैनियल की पुरानी चीजें निकालता रहा। स्कूल ड्राइंग्स, बर्थडे कार्ड्स, एक छोटा सा ब्लू ब्रेसलेट जो डैनियल कभी नहीं उतारता था। उस ब्रेसलेट पर छोटे से लेटर्स इंग्रेव्ड थे। टी। अचानक ईथन का दिल जोर से धड़कने लगा। उस बच्चे के हाथ पर वो भी ब्लू ब्रेसलेट था। इम्पॉसिबल, ईथन ने खुद से कहा, लेकिन आवाज कांप रही थी। अगली सुबह बिना किसी को बताए ईथन हॉस्पिटल गया, उसी हॉस्पिटल जहां सालों पहले डैनियल को डेड डिक्लेयर किया गया था। रिकॉर्ड्स मांगना आसान नहीं था, लेकिन पैसा और नाम दोनों दरवाजे खोल देते हैं। जब फाइल उसके सामने रखी गई, उसकी उंगलियां कांप रही थीं। डैनियल कार्टर, एज 7, स्टेटस डिसीज्ड। लेकिन नीचे एक हैंडरिटन नोट था जो पहले उसने कभी नहीं देखा था। पेशेंट ट्रांसफर्ड अंडर इमरजेंसी अथॉरिटी, केस सील्ड। ईथन का सांस रुक गया। ट्रांसफर्ड कहां? उसने पूछा। डॉक्टर ने नजर चुरा ली। दैट फाइल was never supposed to be reopened. ईथन समझ गया, कोई बहुत बड़ा राज छुपा था। हर रात ईथन फिर कब्रिस्तान गया, इस बार अकेला नहीं। उसने एक प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टिगेटर हायर किया था। लूकस, एक ऐसा आदमी जो सिस्टम के अंधेरे कोनों को जानता था। लूकस ने कबार के आसपास की जमीन देखी, फिर धीरे से बोला, ये ग्राव कभी खोली ही नहीं गई। ईथन का सिर घूमने लगा। तो फिर डैनियल कहां है? लूकस ने गहरी सांस ली। अगर आपका बेटा जिंदा है तो किसी ने उसे जानबूझकर दुनिया से छुपा दिया। उसी वक्त पीछे से किसी ने ताली बजाई। ब्रावो, इन एक तांडी आवाज बोली, फाइनली तुमने सच के करीब कदम रखा। ईथन पलटा। एक आदमी अंधेरे से बाहर आया, ग्रे सूट, सर्दी सी मुस्कुराहट। मैं डॉक्टर हार्ग्रोव हूं, तुम्हारे बेटे का डॉक्टर। ईथन गुस्से से आगे बढ़ा। तुमने मेरे बेटे के साथ क्या किया? डॉक्टर हार्ग्रोव शांत रहा। हमने उसकी जान बचाई। झूठ, ईथन चिल्लाया। सच, डॉक्टर ने कहा। तुम्हारे बेटे पर एक्सपेरिमेंट हुआ और वो जिंदा रहा, लेकिन तुम्हारे पास रहने के लिए बहुत कीमती। ईथन की आंखों में आंसू आ गए। वो कहां है? डॉक्टर ने हल्का सा झुककर कहा, वो तुम्हें देख रहा है, हर साल इसी काबर के पास। ईथन का दिल टूट गया। तुम्हारी आंखों के सामने, डॉक्टर ने धीरे से कहा, लेकिन तुमने कभी पहचाना नहीं। उसी पल ईथन को याद आया, वो बच्चा, वो ब्रेसलेट, वो आंखें। उसका बेटा जिंदा था और वो सच अब और छुपा नहीं रहने वाला था। The millionaire stood frozen as the boy stepped fully into the light. For a moment, his mind rejected what his eyes were seeing. His heart pounded so hard it felt painful. The boy was thinner, older than the child he remembered, but the face, the eyes, the slight curve of the smile. It was his son, alive. Daniel? His voice cracked as he whispered the name he had spoken only at graves, in prayers, and in nightmares. The boy hesitated, his eyes filled with emotion, but he didn't move forward. "Yes," he said softly. "It's me, Dad." The world seemed to tilt. The millionaire dropped to his knees right there in the cemetery. The same place where he had cried for years, believing his child was gone forever. His expensive suit soaked into the damp ground as tears streamed down his face. Tears of shock, guilt, and overwhelming relief. "I buried you," he sobbed. "I watched them lower your coffin. I held your picture and said goodbye." Daniel swallowed hard. That coffin wasn't mine. The caretaker stepped forward then, his voice steady but heavy. "It's time you knew the truth." Years ago, after the accident that left Daniel in critical condition, powerful people stepped in, people who saw opportunity where the father saw loss. Daniel had survived, but complications followed. Instead of informing the family, corrupt officials and doctors falsified records declaring him dead. Why money experiments? Influence. Daniel was transferred in secret, raised in isolation, his identity erased. He was told his parents had abandoned him. Over time, he stopped asking questions, until one day he escaped. "I came back here today," Daniel said quietly, "because I saw you from far away. Crying at my grave, I realized someone still remembered me." The millionaire reached out, afraid the boy might vanish if he blinked. When his hands finally touched Daniel's shoulders, the boy didn't disappear. "He was real. I failed you," the father whispered. "I was rich, powerful, and I couldn't protect my own son." Daniel shook his head. "You never stopped loving me. That's what kept me alive." The truth exploded into the public days later. Investigations followed, arrests were made. The people responsible tried to hide, but money could no longer protect them. The story shocked the world. A billionaire who mourned at a grave, while his son was alive and watching. Father and son didn't heal overnight. Years of pain couldn't be erased in a moment. But they started again, slowly, honestly. On the anniversary of that day, the grave was removed. In its place, the millionaire built a small garden with a single plaque that read, "Never accept loss without searching for truth." And every year, Daniel stood beside his father, not at a grave, but in the sunlight. Proof that even the deepest lies can be undone, and that sometimes the dead are only waiting to be found.